You know the instrument, don't you? It's a piccolo. I used to play piccolo. And that is Antonio Vivaldi. Great composer. Good to see you. How are you? This is writing lesson number 6. Not just accepting edits, but seeking them. I'm on draft 111 of a 340-page book, and I'm always struck when I realize things like that very few people understand just how much revision and editing goes into first-rate work. Now, that's unusual to go over 100 drafts. For an article that I might write, it would be 8 to 10, probably. I was teaching a writing seminar to a group of lawyers in a Midwestern city not too long ago. And one of the participants came up to me at the first morning break. So we'd spent 90 minutes together in the session. He came up to me and he said, Brian, you and I are a lot alike. We both know all about English usage. I know what's in your books. I know what's in Fowler's Modern English Usage. By the way, he was speaking a little bit. I know so much about English usage, and I take this stuff very seriously. There is one point on which you and I disagree, he said. That's all. I already sort of formulated the idea that he's pompous. He said, you allow other people to edit your work, apparently, but I never do that. I would never allow anyone else to edit my work. I don't know who would be qualified. That's what he said. I don't know who would be qualified. It's crazy. I said, anybody's qualified. I don't think so, he said. I'm a very good writer. Well, I guarantee you, if this guy thinks he's a fine writer, he's probably not very good. He's probably, I could tell from the conversation, hyper formal, probably very stilted. And he suffers from this resistance to being edited. And it's a resistance that we all have. I mean, it's understandable. We tend to think if you're going to criticize something I've written, that is a direct assault on me and my work. And it's a problem on both ends because people don't want to be criticized on the one hand, and the would-be critics probably don't want to find fault. They might think it's rude. I asked my father to read something for me the other day. He's coming up on his 90th birthday. He's just as sharp as ever. He said, well, Brian, I wouldn't presume to edit your work. Well, he's edited my stuff over the years enough, and he's one of my favorite editors it's kind of surprised me. But this idea that one ever gets so good as a writer that you don't need editing, it's actually quite false. The way an editor approaches a piece of writing, the editorial mindset is, there's something the matter with this. What's the matter with it? And what needs improvement? So a good editor spots problems and fixes them. It's a matter of diagnosing and then remedying. If it's a very rough piece to begin with, very rough, full of errors and things like that, and problems and confusions, then a good editor will engage in a kind of triage and just pay attention to the things most urgently in need of attention and leaving the smaller things, hoping that there are going to be several drafts. If it's a really fine piece of writing, a very skillful editor will realize, wow, it's as if I'm being put out of business. This is so good, there's nothing to touch. But that rarely happens. I have high schoolers edit my work, college students, law students, friends. By the way, I spend all day editing. So the last thing I want to do is edit something for somebody else, because there's a point where you can't take on more. I mean, it's an investment of time, and I'd rather go chop a log than edit another document, because it's something different, physically and mentally different. But If you're a good writer, I mean, part of what you're trying to do is condition people to know how to edit your stuff. And that means just saying, well, look for any awkward phrasing, or tell me if there are any unanswered questions, or does it progress rationally all the way through? Mark any passage that you consider boring. I don't want to bore my readers. Find places where I can save words. Find more interesting ways to say things, suggest ways to say things more interestingly. And then listen to what people tell you. It's like having a pre-publication focus group. Not everyone shares these values, by the way, so if you're editing somebody else, don't gloat and act superior just because you found some improvements. Write a nice note at the top of the piece. Make your edits go down well. Sally, I appreciated the opportunity to read this. I think it's a fine piece. I really like your first 2 points about so-and-so. And I learned several things from reading it. I hope you'll find my edits self-explanatory, Brian. Something like that. It'll make your edits go down better, but make some global comments of some sort. Don't just make a bunch of nitpicky remarks on the pages. Remember, editing is an act of friendship. A good editor is making you look smarter than you actually are, smarter and better. If you're in law, by the way, you need continuing legal education. And for those credits, I hope you'll go to our website, www.lawpros.org. That's my organization. We have a great selection of courses, over 35 hours of instruction in 1 hour segments on writing everything relating to legal documents, briefs, contracts, statutes, judicial opinions, memos, everything. Remember also, fall in love with language. It will always love you back. A little more Antonio Vivaldi. Great piccolo player. Wow. Take care.